I want to talk to you about how to podcast make money this year. Let's have a conversation about monetization, about the avenues for revenue, and how to actually scale over time. So here's a strategy I want you to think about. So how do you make money from a podcast? I mean, basically, you recorded actually your voice into a mic, and the content is out there, and hopefully you're gonna actually draw a certain audience, right? So you're gonna have a certain listenership. But the thing is that when you think about making money from a podcast, you have to really understand that you got to have a strong foundation. And the foundation actually is a trifecta. So the foundation, when it comes to trying to making money from a podcast, you got to have a content, you got to have presentation, delivery, and performance, and you got to have a strategy to build your relationships and community. Let me explain that to you. When I speak about content, so basically you got to be the best you. You got to be inspired. You got to be really knowledgeable, because see, you can't talk about something you have no idea about. You have no idea about, because your audience will figure out real quick that you have no idea what you're speaking about, and they will actually get out of here as soon as possible. So content is really important, right? So content really means that you are speaking about something that you know a lot about, and that you have something to share, to actually talk about. But most importantly, that you are able to actually deliver actually value. You can add value. Also, when I think about the presentation, delivery, and performance, this is actually the second leg of this trifecta. You have to really think about how you come across when you are behind the microphone. You can have the best topic and message in the world, but if the listener is not really interested, if the listener is bored, he or she either will not care or will not listen. This doesn't mean that you should act as someone else, trying to really pretend who you're not. No, be yourself, okay? Because everybody else is taken, as the proverbial quote goes. But you have to be yourself, but really be engaged, okay? Be engaging. Also, you have to think about building relationships and community. So, in other words, your listeners are not just they're not just the random folks who want to listen to you actually talking over the phone. No, you got to really build that community. So you also have to think about choosing a method of podcast monetization. So because the whole thing is that you have to really ask yourself, what kind of background professionally do you have? Are you a teacher, a coach, a thought leader, a performer, a creator? You have to think about what kind of professional background you have, and from there you have to think about the options you have in terms of in terms of making money from a podcast. For instance, you can create courses, and those are the options I want you to really think about. Creating courses, that's really great. You have platforms such as Teachable and Thinkific, who can help you actually, and those can help you do a lot of things in terms of monetizing your content. You can also have one-on-one coaching. This is also a great way to actually make money this year from your podcast. So when you think about how to make money from a podcast, number one, creating courses. Number two, one-on-one coaching. Number three, sponsorships and sponsors, by the way. So sponsorships and advertising are often seen as a default method when it comes to making money from a podcast. One problem with sponsorship, though, is that many advertisers are still fixated on numbers instead of interaction and engagement. So this is an important element. I mean, you and I know that 500 or even 50 engaged listeners are far more valuable than 5,000 or even 50,000 casual listeners. So it's not just about the quantity here, it's about the quality, okay? So if you like to get a sponsor for your show, choose someone that fits your topic and your audience, and approach them with real stories of your generic engagement, okay? Explain well how this whole thing will benefit them too. Because when you think about sponsors and sponsorship, you got to really think about a win-win situation. You have to think about storytelling, very important, but you have to think about how this will benefit your sponsor, because he or she will be spending money, and there has to be a return on investment there. So that's really good. And another way to actually make money from a podcast this year is to actually write a book or an ebook based on your podcast content. Because the whole thing is that when you actually are a podcaster, if you've been doing this for a while, you have accumulated some knowledge. You are a thought leader, right? But the thing is, how can you monetize that sort of a skill? How do you actually turn that skill, that knowledge, that acumen into something of value to you and your podcast? This is an important element. So when you write a book or ebook, this is kind of cool because this is a popular method for making money from a podcast. A good book can be a short and sweet and pretty easy to create if you know your stuff. You can print or self-publish an ebook on virtually anything. Find something that's hot in your topic and write about it, but make sure the benefit for the reader is really, really clear. Can you identify a problem and solve it? Because the whole thing is you want to add value. Otherwise, your book would just be one other book in the library of useless books anyway, right? So you want to add value right off the bat. So, and that's going to help you solidify your relationship in terms of thought leadership with your audience. And that's important when it comes to establishing a solid LX for your listeners. LX, listener experience. Another way to make money from a podcast this year is to actually sell a product. And in selling a product here, what I'm speaking here, I'm speaking about merch. Okay. I mean, with this podcast monetization method, you need to think hard about the problems your listeners face, or better still, set up a survey and ask them, can you create a product that will make life easier for them? Okay. So this is kind of important to think about. And one of those things where you have to really make sure that your audience is actually there to actually support you. And so when it comes to selling a product, you are 100% in control. Everything is actually on your own terms, and you will generally receive the biggest percentage of income generated as compared to all other monetization methods. Okay. Now, the only thing is that when it comes to selling a product, it can be a heavy workload because creating a product of value will take time and effort. If it's physical products, you also need to think about the manufacturing and distribution side of things. Are you prepared to actually ship around the globe? Because if you have an audience that actually is somewhere around the globe, you have to think about that as well. Another thing you want to do is you want to sell a service. So instead of selling a product, you can sell a service. Okay. So this is actually a step beyond the coaching that I spoke to you about a little earlier. Instead of teaching your audience how, you can do it for them, and you can call it a service. Okay. And this is kind of cool. Now, the good thing about a service is that a service can have all the benefits of one-on-one coaching, but this time you can hire staff to work alongside you. Building a team means your business can keep on scaling and scaling and scaling. But on the flip side, growth and scaling are not without their challenges. You can spend all your time working on the business instead of creating content on the topic you love. And so this route can grow arms and legs and go way beyond just how to monetize a podcast. So be very clear there. So when you start this, you need to have a vision. This is where vision really plays an important role, because vision is going to dictate how far you can go, how strong you want to go, and what kind of tactics, what kind of strategies, what kind of hacks, what kind of tips you want to really follow in establishing your business, or even solidifying your avenue, this particular avenue for revenue. If you are thinking about making money from a podcast, I want you to think hard about affiliate marketing and income. And I mean, every podcaster talks about the stuff they love, and in many cases, that includes product or services. So this is kind of cool. So you got to ask yourself, what kind of what sort of niche are you in, and what sort of products and services your audience cares about, your listeners care about. Think of the products or services you love most and see if they have an affiliate program. If it's on Amazon, then that makes things easy. You can sign up for their affiliate program in just a few minutes. If your beloved brand does sell on there, though, it's still worth approaching the company directly and requesting to become an affiliate partner. And this is kind of cool. And you can actually take this a step further and combine it with other methods too. There is no reason not to create a free or paid course or ebook with affiliate links. That's kind of cool. And so one thing I want to talk to you also about, that you can have a premium and exclusive content. So this is actually a simple podcast monetization strategy. Sell the podcast itself. So for the average indie podcaster, selling the entire thing is not a good idea. You need enough people to listen for free, so they'll like it enough to pay. So to solve that, some podcasters sell their back catalog. For example, you want to keep the most recent 50 or 100 episodes free. That's kind of cool. But to access the older ones, you have to pay. So that gives actually some kind of flexibility, and that's kind of cool. And I've actually covered this on another show extensively. So if you're interested, go and watch that show or ask your questions, and I can certainly answer you. Not a problem. Okay. So in terms of actually having premium and exclusive content, you created a product that you own 100%, and you created by doing what you were already doing anyway. Okay. But the thing is, this strategy will hamper your growth because not even the most popular podcast, Joe Rogan, for example, will get 100% of its listeners to pay for content. So it is actually doing you more harm than good by limiting your free content to your loyal audience. The question is it really worth it? So if you are in a position to do this, you are also in a position to try any of the other podcast monetization methods that I just spoke to you about. So think about the drawbacks here and see if those are really worth it for you. And you can also make money from a podcast on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. I mean, this is I actually have an entire show that talks about that, so you are able to actually watch that show and see what you can actually glean from it. So that's kind of cool. With Apple Podcast subscriptions, for instance, you receive 70% of the subscription price at each billing cycle, minus applicable taxes. And after a subscriber accumulates 1 year of paid service, your net revenue increases to 85% of the subscription price, minus applicable taxes. Your other podcast revenue, including any ads, will stay 100% yours. You can also, when you think about making money from a podcast, you can make money from your podcast skills. Okay. I mean, in terms of skills, I mean, if you are speaking about finance, for instance, basically, maybe you know a lot about money management, budgeting. You can have a lot about how to increase your credit score and so on and so forth. So you can actually make money from that as well. So if you are a great host, you can tell a good story. And if you have the production chops to make it sound good, you can actually generate a living that way. So this is kind of cool. And in this case, your own podcast acts as a portfolio piece, showing others your creative audio skill set and capabilities. So that's kind of cool because you are able to get paid to podcast because you can monetize your podcast skills. Whether you love to get behind the mic or spend hours crafting great sounding audio in your DAW, there are folks out there who will pay you to do that for them. Okay. You also can try Patreon, crowdfunding, and donations. So this podcast monetization method is well suited to content creators and hobbyist podcasts. If you have built a loyal listening community, why not ask them to help support you by pledging a small amount of money to the show on a regular basis? So this is kind of cool because it gives you a lot of flexibility, but also a lot of room to actually breathe a little bit, at least financially speaking. Okay. So the work needed to get donations is the work you are already doing, trying to create a brilliant podcast. That said, you can go a little further, actually, okay, and create rewards and incentives to encourage listeners to support you too. Now, the thing is that basically when it comes to a crowdfunding or Patreon or what have you, they can be fickle and hard to build any solid foundations around because you are also reliant on third-party platforms that you don't own or control. The whole thing is when you think about podcasting, you got to really think about a marathon. In the long run, you have to be in control, or at least you got to have the majority of control of certain things. Okay, so if you are, for instance, on Apple Podcast, you do not control that platform. If you are on Patreon, you do not control that platform, and sooner or later, stuff can happen. I mean, we live in a very uncertain world, and stuff can happen. If you are thinking about actually making money from a podcast, think about creating an email list, okay? And this will help you a lot. And so the thing is that many a seasoned podcaster will tell you this is the most important thing you can do when figuring out how to monetize a podcast. No matter what strategy you choose, make sure you have an email list. Not only do they help strengthen connections and interactions with the audience, they also help supplement each of the monetization methods that I've just spoken to you a little earlier. You can try a lot of players. You have MailChimp, you have Bravo, you have ConvertKit, you have Aweber, you have a lot of players, okay? And so this is kind of cool. And you want to have a provider that helps you set up automatic sequences easily. So you can engage with and teach new subscribers. So this is kind of cool. And when it comes to email marketing, aside from podcast monetization, email marketing is actually one of the most tried and tested ways of keeping in touch with your audience and building relationships with them. And many other community and social media platforms have come and gone, but email is really as old as the web itself. You can also sell podcast merch. Okay, I mean a middle ground between selling a product you own 100%, an affiliate or commission sales, is actually running a merch store on a third-party platform such as Shopify or BigCommerce or WooCommerce. There are services out there that let you set up your own shop. You add your own designs, logos, or artwork to their products. Then they handle the sales and shipping for you. Okay, so basically you are speaking about your ability to get things done a lot faster. And this is actually this is good because it allows you to focus on other stuff. And the bottom line here is that if for you to actually survive in this industry, you got to have that strategy in different formats. Okay, this is an important element. So when it comes to selling merch, it's really an arm's length way of making some money. You just need to promote and link to your merch store, and the rest will happen in the background. Podcast monetization aside, it can also be good for promotion and marketing. You have listeners walking around advertising your podcast. Think about it. And in terms of the drawbacks, commission rates for these services are typically very low. So you are unlikely to make much money this way, even if you have a large and engaged audience. So something to really think about, especially in the long run. So yeah. So overall, when you think about making money from a podcast, let me give you a few pro tips here. It's important to understand that when you actually start your podcast right off the bat, think right away about monetizing it. Don't wait until you hit, let's say, 5,000 downloads or 50,000 downloads or 1,000 users to actually start thinking about monetization. You want to think about monetization right off the bat because it can really help you actually structure things properly. Okay, and you should also try to think of podcasting as a business. If you think of it as a business, naturally you should try to make money podcasting, because basically, why should you spend hours upon hours upon hours trying to really hone your skills and not make money out of it? I mean, you still need to actually put food on the table for the kids, or for yourself for that matter. So you got to really have a strategy in place, a vision right off the bat to actually get things done properly. Okay, so you have to really think about this right off the bat. And when it comes to monetizing a podcast, you actually have to think about things that are easier. And when it comes to things that are easier, affiliate marketing is actually one of the easiest way to monetize your podcast right off the bat, because you don't have to do anything. Okay, just even if you have 2 followers or 20 followers or 200 followers, you can still make money from affiliate marketing. Then you can also think about sponsorship. Sponsorship is a great way also to establish a relationship with the company. As long as you have a very dedicated, very engaged followers. Again, here the emphasis is on quality, not quantity. As I said earlier, if you have 1,000 very casual listeners versus 10 very engaged listeners, you can actually monetize, quote unquote, you can monetize those 10 listeners through sponsorship. You also have coaching. Okay, you can start this up once your audience knows you well and are willing to pay for your time. In other words, you have established already your thought leadership, and your audience is really trusting also of the quality of your content. You can also have a course. Eventually, you will start to see the questions that come up again and again. So build a course to answer them. And you can also think about actually having a product. You might build a product to help your coaching and course students to solve their biggest problem. Especially, this is actually very good from a scalability point of view, like in the long run. So in conclusion to this conversation, I spoke to you about how to make money from a podcast, and I actually gave you several options. I first spoke to you about the strategy. The strategy should revolve around the content, the presentation, delivery, and performance, but also your ability to build relationships and a community. And in terms of options, I share with you a lot of options, and also I give you the pro tips to think about this year. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.